I said, how's everybody doing? All right, so for this next panel, we're going to talk today about an important topic with some important people. How to create health and wellness in every area of your life. And if you didn't know, you're about to know, because we've got some incredible authors from the Baltimore area lined up to give you their wisdom, their experience. Now, how many people here have ever been impacted by a book? Show of hands. Been impacted by a book. Okay, so you understand the power of the written word and how a book can transform your mind, can transform your life, can change your perspective. And the beauty of a book is that a book can live on for all eternity. It can outlast its author, it can outlast its era, and it can be timeless in that regard. So I want you to begin by giving a round of applause to these authors from Baltimore who stepped up to write these books. And watch this. I got an automatic way of getting authors to give a head nod. Yes or no, is writing a book a hard, laborious job? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So let me introduce our panel. From my left to the right, your right to the left, start all the way down on the far right. We've got Olayinka, also known as Yinka, that's her nickname as it was, Ladeji, who is a public health expert and patients program team member. And she's the author of the book, Spirituality, Complementary, let me get it right, Spirituality, Complementary, and Alternative Health Practices and Their Promise for Public Health. Please welcome Olayinka. Please give a round of applause. Next up is Brother Kandwani Fidel. Did I get that right? Yes. All right. I don't want to mess up your name. That'd be wrong. He's a community activist, and he is the proud author of a gripping book, which I recommend you get a copy of. Actually, you're going to get copies. Hold on a second. Hold on. The name of the book is Raw Wounds. Welcome, Brother Kandwani. Next up, we have author, speaker, motivational speaker, inspirational speaker, Kelly Campbell, who is the author of Instant Author, a book about becoming an author. So give Kelly a round of applause. Second to last, we've got one of my role models, one of my friends, a gentleman whose book influenced me long before I became an entrepreneur and I was reading about how to become an entrepreneur. I read a book called Black Wealth Through Entrepreneurship. And it opened up my head, it poured information into my brain and closed it up, and it's not been the same ever since. And the author of that book is a man I look up to. His name is Robert Wallace, an international entrepreneur. He's also a regent with the University System of Maryland. Please welcome entrepreneur and author Robert Wallace. And last, you may know her because she is too legit to quit. She is fit and equipped. She is the Guinness Book World Record holder and the author of Determined, Dedicated, Disciplined to Be Fit, The Ageless Journey of Ernestine Shepard. Please welcome Ernestine Shepard. So we'll begin with you, Ernestine. Maybe if we could just open up with a conversation about what inspired you to write the book, and I think for this audience, what inspired you to get fit? I think some people know your story, but I don't think we all know your story. So give us a little soundbite on your inspiration for writing and for fitness.
Can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear me? Well, actually, how I got started, it was a vain reason. My sister and I were invited to a church picnic. And we were told we could wear bathing suits. So, we went to purchase these suits. We put them on, and my sister said, take it off. Take it off. We can't go anywhere in those suits. We need to start exercising. So, within a matter of a month or so, we went to Coppin College. And we started taking aerobic classes there. And don't you know, we enjoyed that so much. And my sister, her name was Velvet, said, you know what we're going to do? Since we've done so well, we want to inspire others to live a healthy, happy, positive, confident lifestyle by exercising. But we have to tell them first Prayer comes in there before you do anything. You can't do anything without prayer. Then you have to start eating correctly, and then, of course, getting out, doing some type of walking. We did that. We had a nice following. So finally, I'm not going to be long, finally she said to me one day, if something were to happen to me, do you think you could continue what we're doing? And I looked at her and said, vice versa. She says, I'm not fooling. Do you think you could do it? I said, yes, I'll try. Little did I know that she was sick. She came to me one day. Each time she came with different things. She came to me and said, my head hurt me so bad, I don't know why. The next time, something was wrong with her eye. The next time, she couldn't use her hands. The next time, she couldn't remember anything. Took her to the hospital. They examined her. And they found out that she had a brain aneurysm. By her exercising, she stayed on her feet longer than the average person would. But they finally said she would only be a vegetable because everything, the blood was running in her ears, it had already burst. So she died right then and there. So I knew I had to continue what she wanted. But before I did that, don't you know, I was the meanest, ugliest person that you could ever find because I couldn't understand why God took her away when she was such a good person. And there were other people who were living that I said were bad. Well, I stayed in the house. I had high blood pressure, panic attacks, you name it, I had it. But one day, I decided I would go to a church, and I sat there. And I heard the organist playing a song. And the song I loved so much. And the words were, here I am, Lord. It is I, Lord. I have heard you calling through the night. I will go, Lord, where you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. I jumped up, disrupted that service, and I said, restore to me the joy of my salvation. Restore to me the joy of each new day. Give me back the love that I once had for you, and never ever let me slip away. That changed me completely. I knew then what I had to do. She wanted to be in the Guinness Book of World Records. She wanted to be in Ripley's Believe It or Not. She wanted to be on all the television shows.
Come on.
I ended up at age 71.
Praise the Lord.
Went to Rome. I was in the Guinness Book of World Records for the
Amen.
oldest female competitive bodybuilder. Next thing I knew, Ripley's Believe It or Not called me. I went down. They had me in their book. You can go down there and see it. As Granny's six packs. Then I have appeared on every TV show there is. And that is what made me.
I want to move on to Robert, but I just want to note that I was inclined to curtail Sister Ernestine's comments, keep moving, but she might hurt me, so I'm gonna keep it moving.
Yeah, she might. That's right. You're a smart man.
I'm finished talking.
Leave her alone.
I'm
Leave her
finished.
alone.
Brother Wallace, so you're an entrepreneur.
Yes, sir.
I'm a businessman. I understand where you're coming from. Your books are on wealth, strategic planning.
Yes, sir.
Building the economic base of the community.
That's right.
I've heard the phrase, and I'm sure you've heard it, that your wealth is your health, and your health is your wealth. So could you draw for us the connection between kind of your writing and how that relates to this topic around health?
Absolutely. So if you look at the root cause of the social dysfunction that we find in Baltimore and throughout the country, right? The root cause, I would submit, is spiritual. But after spiritual, it's economic. I was raised in Cherry Hill in the projects in South Baltimore, And I remember watching Mom and Daddy struggle. Mama was a janitor in the Baltimore City school system. Daddy was a laborer. And I remember Mom and Daddy struggling to make ends meet. And I remember seeing and watching the stress that it created on Mom and Daddy, and how over the years it began just to wear them down, just trying to figure out how to make ends meet consistently, not having enough cash at the end of the month to pay the bills. You know, we were on welfare for a while. I remember eating welfare cheese and welfare powdered milk. Y'all know what I'm talking about, that. But I remember going to those, and I remember when we had food stamps, and Mom and Daddy would wait till like the last 15 minutes when the store was open to go to the market. Why? Because they didn't want them to see anyone see them using food stamps to buy food. And I remember Daddy struggling with that as a man. The economic stress. And I said, you know, Lord, I said, to my best ability, I hope that I can be in a different position than Mom and Daddy. And so what I saw as the path of that, Dr. Pinkett, was the path to economic security. Because there's a connection between physical health and economic health. There is a connection. And so, if you, for example, marriages, if you study why marriages break up, number one reason they break up is not sex. It's not, y'all think it's sex, right? It's not sex. It's money. It's money. Right. The stress of not having enough money. And so I said, Lord willing, I would do the best I could to have a different experience. And the path I saw, Dr. Pinkett, was entrepreneurship. Because I looked around Cherry Hill Society. I looked at the Cherry Hill Shopping Center. Any Cherry Hill folks in here? No Cherry Hill folks? Oh, no, Cherry Hill, Baltimore, Doc. Cherry Hill, Baltimore. Over inside. He said Cherry Hill, New Jersey. No. Cherry Hill, Baltimore. Show myself. And so when I went to the stores in the shopping center in Cherry Hill, and I looked at the people who owned the stores, and I said, boy, these are nice people, but they don't look like me. So we were giving our money away, and not getting any other wealth benefit. And I made a point, I said, you know, God willing, one day, I'm going to be the one on the other side of the table taking money versus giving money. And so I do think there's a connection, Doc, between economic health and physical health. And that's why my books revolve around how do we build economic health through entrepreneurship and through alliances and partnerships. And I'll stop there, Doc. We can take it over.
Good. So Kelly, an author, and you're like the author's author, right? And a speaker. But I also know from having familiarized myself with your work that you talk about your own health journey in your books. And I'm going to say this, I haven't heard you say it, but my impression is that you see writing as therapeutic, as a way of processing and dealing with the challenges of life, be they health or otherwise. So talk to us about what I see is your ministry through your writing. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. I got started writing not so much for myself, but for the people I encounter. I've been a trainer for over a decade, but for a very long time, I was all about teaching people information. I'm a recovering engineer. But it wasn't until I know you are. You were my president, Nesby, Region 1. And so it wasn't until I started sharing my story, sharing myself, sharing my personal experiences that I realized that I could have an impact on other people. I'm a lupus survivor, as is my mother. I was diagnosed with lupus in 2001. That is an autoimmune disease that is oftentimes called the invisible disease because you can look at someone but not see their pain and their suffering. But I didn't do anything about it for 7 years until that disease came from my mother. And at 65, she was disabled by that illness. And I watched her go from being this dynamic, energetic, she was just like Miss Ernestine, woman, to someone that was giving up on life because she thought it was going to be a life sentence, this illness. And then I went into action because it was unacceptable to me to watch my mother disappear. Sometimes we can do things for other people that we cannot do for ourselves. Somebody else can be the motivation for everything that you do. And I watched my mother, we changed our lifestyles. I grabbed her, put her on a plane, flew her to naturopaths all across the country, and I watched her over a period of 2 years Go from being someone who was disappearing back to Miss Ernestine. If she was here, she'd work out and walk with you every day. But sharing that story with other people, I started to see how it inspired them. And what I would say for patients here is that there's 3 ways I think writing can impact patients. One is, yes, it can be therapeutic. It can really help you find a way to see how far you've come when you're not where you want to be. And sometimes that's the hardest thing, to be able to go back and see, oh my gosh, I've come so far, just because you're not where you want to be right now today. But I also see it as a way for you to track your progress for your medical providers. Part of the reason we've been so successful is that we're good communicators with the people who are trying to help us. And our success with our health is only as good as our ability to communicate with our doctors, challenge them, and advocate for ourselves. But the third thing is, even if you're not where you want to be, your story can still be impactful for somebody else because you're here, you're a survivor. And every time you share that story, you empower yourself to keep going to the next level. And so I think writing for patients can be a huge way to empower your life, as for the caregivers as well.
So, Kamwani, the author of Raw Wounds, which is a strong title, and I know it's got some deep meaning in there, but you're also involved in another project, Hummingbirds in the Trenches. Did I get that right?
Yes.
So talk to us about that project and what you're doing in Baltimore City Schools. I know you're involved in the schools as well.
Okay, so growing up, I'm gonna keep it short. Growing up, I always got good grades, but I didn't get good grades because I loved education. I used to get good grades because my Aunt Sadiq would give me $20 for every A+ letter. And my grandmother just had this structure, you know, like you come in the house, you do your homework, then the rest of the day is yours. And so I grew up my whole life never valuing education. You know, went to Baltimore City College High School, and the process came around for, you know, applying to colleges and stuff. So again, I never saw any value in college. People just told me to go because it was the right thing to do. Just go to college, go to college. Nobody's telling me anything about it. So I applied to all of these colleges, and I got accepted to Virginia Union University and Virginia State University. And my cousin was a freshman at Union at the time. And I was like, yo, Avon, should I go to Union or should I go to State? He was like, man, go to State. And I was like, but I want to go to school with you. He was like, Virginia State, they got more resources. I'm like, he was like, yo, they got better sports teams. I was like, do I really care about the sports teams? And he was like, yo, they got more people. And I was like, And he was like, yo, the girls at Virginia State look way better. And I was like, all right, bet. Fastest offer I ever accepted in my life. So I accepted my offer to Virginia State, and I was studying sport management because all of my friends were good in basketball, football, like they had promising careers. And I used to play basketball, but I used to only get them when we were like up by 30 points or down by 30 points. So early on, I just knew that that wasn't for me. So in my mind, I had that I was going to be that sport management, you know, agent and all of that. And I had this English professor named Arnold Westbrook, and he channeled a lot of his English lessons through African American studies. And so we were reading Maya Angelou, Langston Hughes. We were watching episodes of the Boondocks. We were reading rap lyrics. We were watching Chris Rock's documentary about the definition of good and bad hair. And I found myself falling in love with reading. So I said to myself, you didn't hate reading growing up, and when you was in middle school and high school, you just hated what they was forcing you to read. So I fell in love with reading, and I would even skip class to read. Then I fell in love with writing, and I would even skip class to write. So I'm writing every day. In February 10th, 2013, I got the courage and I got on stage in front of 200 people at this event, and I performed, got a standing ovation, and I looked myself in the mirror and said, yo, you're not the smartest man in the world, but if 200 people can stand up for you and it's your first time, you can only get better. Went to Gandhi Hall that next day, changed my major from sport management to English, graduated 2015, came back home to Baltimore. Had my little minivan. I'm driving up and down the East Coast, hitting different events, literary events in New York, DC, Baltimore, you name it. And I'm dropping videos on YouTube. And then I started seeing teachers playing my videos in their classrooms, or they taking my work that's online and putting it in their curriculums. And I told myself that I never wanted to be a teacher because I just always thought that teachers were like the worst people ever. So I just never wanted to be a teacher, but I saw that my work was in these classrooms. When I'm talking about in California and on the East Coast, Midwest, you name it. And then that's when I had a moral obligation to focus on students in Baltimore City. Because I hear people all the time that say, oh, I hate reading, I hate reading, I hate reading. I'm like, you don't hate reading, you just haven't found what you love to read yet. So that's what I do. I go to different schools, I teach writing workshops, and you know, if the teachers do have my work or videos, like I just was a part of this short film documentary called Hummingbirds in the Trenches, which is the title of my next book. And you know, it's teachers that already started showing that in their classroom just to get their kids, you get what I'm saying, hope that you can be from East Baltimore, you can go to places like London, you can get invited, you know, to different countries and be a writer and be a speaker and not just, you know, subscribing to the stereotypical, you know, black narrative where you have to either rap or you have to play basketball. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But that's a little bit of my story.
Amen. Amen.
Powerful story, powerful story. Olayinka, so I gotta read the title of the book again, because it's deep. Spirituality, complementary and alternative health practices, and their promise for public health. Now, you gotta break that down for us. There's a spiritual piece there, there's an alternative health piece there, there's a religious piece there that undergirds the healthy piece, which we've heard lots of perspectives, but let's hear from you, because you would like to get deep on this.
Okay, so basically I just understand a little bit of my background. I started out being trained in the field of public health. And from what I could see that was going on in the public health field as well as the healthcare professions, there were a lot of gaps that needed to be filled. And from my experiences, not just reflective of what I experienced growing up, but also things I had studied, things I had learned outside of the education that I had received. I just had so many, it was like there was a void, like the two were not connecting. For example, with the public health field or the health field in general, you know, there's kind of like a hush-hush. Just like with everything, it seems like with everything else in the U.S., don't mention religion, don't mention spirituality, don't mention God, you know? And so to actually think that there is a way, as part of the culture of health, to put whatever name you know God by Allah, Yahweh, God, Neter, whatever you know God by, and put that, there is, in my book I discuss how there could be a place for you to insert the thing that's closest to you a lot of times, which is your relationship with God, or relationship with a higher being, or even just a relationship with being a better person, and finding that you can do things differently. Your world, there is more to life than just the mundane things that you do every day and the mundane activities that you engage in, but that also can be a part of the health experience and a part of healing from whatever you're going through in your life, whatever illness or disease you may have, or whatever illness or disease you want to prevent. And that is one piece. And then the other piece is complementary and alternative health practices. A lot of times, if you ask health professionals, they will quietly admit that there are a lot of issues in the health system as we know it. And a lot of times, the basis for the healthcare system is that you come in when you're sick. You actually wait till you're ill, sometimes wait till you're dying before you seek care. And one thing I liked about the whole idea of alternative and complementary healthcare was that it's mostly prevention-based. So even if you have decent health, it's not perfect, but you can always make things better. Right. And you know, if you think of things like acupuncture and meditation and massage therapy, and even I would put as part of that going to your religious place of worship, participating in activities to heal yourself and focus on preventing a lot of things that may go wrong, you get so much mileage out of that because no one likes to feel ill. No one wants to go to the doctor for anything. But you have at your fingertips the ability to kind of steer your health in the direction you want it to be. You actually have the ability to change what you're doing and do something that's more conducive to better health. And there's some people that walk every day, walk significantly. Like my father's in the audience, he walks 2 hours every single day.
All right now.
And just things you can do to improve your health, improve your diet on your own. You don't need your doctor to necessarily wait. You don't need to wait till your doctor tells you don't eat fried foods, don't have a meat-centered diet. Make sure you have a lot of vegetables and fruits and grains in your diet. And so it's definitely in my vision that we look at more of how we could bring something to healthcare as opposed to waiting for healthcare to take care of us.
All right.
So.
I'd like anyone who's so inclined to chime in on this next topic of discussion. So again, you're all authors. So part of what you do is you communicate ideas to people through the written word, and I imagine for all of you through the spoken word as well. As we bring together people here to talk about their own health, and equally importantly, the health of the people in their lives, and how they can be influencers to their behaviors. What have you found to be the messages that have been most effective as people are giving you feedback or in your travels to getting people to change their behaviors, to live more healthy lives, to care about their health? Some of you have had turning points. Some of you have had them by choice or by circumstance, but what have you found to be messages that have been most effective?
Coming from probably the least healthiest person on this panel, I would say that it comes from surrounding yourself with people who are healthy. Like I find myself, eating better, living better, exercising because my mentors, they exercise, and they might be writing it. We'll be together writing in the office, and they'll be like, yeah, at 3 o'clock, I gotta go play basketball. At 2:30, I got a yoga session with ZZ, or I gotta meet up with my homeboy Mo, you get what I'm saying? We about to go do some workout, yoga type stuff, right? And that motivates me to do that. And me, not really understanding the importance of, you get what I'm saying, health and all of these things, with me being 25 and like all of this, talk is like new for me. Just learned about this kind of stuff like yesterday, you know what I'm saying? Like milk is bad for you, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that, like, I'm just learning that kind of stuff. So, and it's from me surrounding myself with good people.
My dad taught me a long time ago. Daddy said that, as the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So I've learned the message, Doc, is if we can change a woman or a man's thinking, we can change their outcome. And I got a really quick story, Doc. I'll make it quick, Doc. So I'm from Cherry Hill Projects. 5 boys. We had a little project home, 2 bedrooms, 5 boys, and we used to share beds and had me heat in the winter and all that, right? So when I went to Poly, any Poly graduates here? I'm also an engineer. So any Poly graduates here? So when I went to Poly, the first time I went to school with integrated school, prior to that, it was all African American. We were all from Cherry Hill, we were all black, and we were all poor. Right? I go to Poly, now we're integrated with different kids from different backgrounds. I meet this young man, we become friends from Roland Park. He invites me to his house for the weekend. I ask Mom and Daddy, they say yes. I go to his house. I walk into his house and I had the experience of a lifetime. There were 3 kids in his family. Each child had their own bedroom. Each child had their own bed. And they had real milk. Not welfare milk, right? And they had a real color TV. This is back in the old days. See, back in the old days, if you were poor and you couldn't afford a color TV, you take a black and white TV, and you could buy this colored paper, you tape on the black and white TV, and it made you think you were watching color TV, right? I said, look here, look here. I said, what in the world is this? And they had real cereal. They had like brand name cereal, right? Not the kind that had no name to it. It came in a big plastic bag. I said, look here, look here. So we had dinner. They had all kinds of rooms. They had a mud room, living room, family room, den, library. We had bedroom, living room, kitchen, bathroom. That was it. I said, look ahead, look ahead. So that night we have dinner at his house, and they had 3 meals a day. I said, wow. So when I talked to his dad, Doc, I said, sir, what do you do for a living? He said, well, Bob, I'm an engineer. I said, got it. And then I said, well, how do you make a living to make money to live like this? They had a big Victorian house, Doc, wraparound porch. I mean, they had it going on. And I saw this on TV, Leave It to Beaver, y'all too young, Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best. I saw it on TV, but I didn't know it was real. But now I was seeing it for real. I said, look ahead, look ahead. He said, Bob, I own my own business. I said, got it. It is no mistake that today Bob Wallace is an engineer and he owns his own company. Why, Doc? Because that day, that man helped me connect the dots, right? As the man thinketh, so is he.
These are some great points being made here. I hope you all are getting something out of this panel. Are you getting something out of the panel? Yeah. All right, fantastic. So let me go back to you, Ernestine, and bring you back into the conversation. So what I've learned from you, from seeing you on television and in the media, is that your example alone inspires other people. And so talk to us about the power of what we do, whether we say anything or whether we do anything, how our example alone can have an impact on other people and what that impact can be.
Actually, let me go this way.
Go.
When I am around others who do not do any type of training at all, they'll come to me and they'll say, Miss Ernestine, I want to start training. I want to be a size 2 or a size 4. I said, hold up a minute. I said, you don't go that way.
Come on.
All size 2s are not healthy.
Come on.
Make sure you know that.
Come on.
Then I say to them, but you have to, if you start exercising, you have to eat correctly, because you can exercise all you want. But if you do not eat correctly, nothing is going to happen.
Amen.
And then the next thing, make certain walking
That's right.
is the best thing that you could possibly do. I suffered with depression in a bad way. I was on every type of medication trying to get my mind together. But you know what I did? Got out there every morning, walked 2 hours, increases from 2 to 4, from 4 to 6, from then on marathons. No more medication for me. I don't take anything because I know what exercise can do for you. And I'm telling all of you, try something.
Yes, ma'am.
Please, please. You know what I'm talking about. You out there walking every day. Doesn't it give you some joy? All right,
Amen.
then.
So Kelly, get ready. I'm going to come to you in a second. I want you to give us some advice for the authors that might be in the room. But Yankee, let me come to you real quick before we go to Kelly and ask you this question. So what I took from your comments is that there has historically been somewhat of a disconnect between spirituality and faith and health. And then when we think about the faith as people bring to their lives, that it can guide them in how they live their lives and deal with their families and interact with people, but I'm hearing from you that we haven't done as good a job of connecting that to how we live a healthy life. Could you talk about what you've seen and what you think we can be doing differently to make that connection stronger?
Hold on, let me get you.
Like Oprah, here we go.
Okay, so this is a little complex because there are quite a few different religious paths and a number of spiritual paths as well that different people may be on. So I'm going to try and go in a way that kind of brings everyone together. So pardon me, don't feel like you're left out. But spirituality, I would say, for better health care, number one, you have to know, most religious paths agree that we're made in the image and likeness of God. And so when you look at making that a reality in your life every day, doing things to make yourself look more like God in whatever capacity you see that to be, and you are working actively towards improving your life in every way that you can to serve as God's vessel on earth, then as a natural outgrowth of that, you find that your health responds. If you have a relationship with a higher being, you have meaning in life.
Yes.
That's right.
And that is definitely takes you a long ways in terms of your health. I don't know. It's not like something that's concrete necessarily to tell people to do, but just whatever path you choose, make sure you're seeking to be a better person,
Yes,
seeking to change the things about you that are your bad habits and bad character traits, and that is healing. Your body hears you making those changes. Your body makes those changes with you, and you heal yourself. You're not so stressed out. You're at peace, even if it's as simple as meditating on a daily basis. I do that. I meditate every evening,
Yes.
and that is a source of calm, a source of healing, a source of uniting with God, making space for God every day in your life. And that's just something that you can't take lightly. And so for healthcare, and it works on a group level as well. You have hospitals, like for example, Aurelia Laird is gone, but I was at Bon Secours Hospital, which is just a stone's throw from here. I went there for a meeting. I thought we were going to be just discussing healthcare. And next thing I know, she said, okay, before we start this meeting, it's the tradition of the hospital, let's bow our heads in prayer. So what is going on? This is nice. And even though it wasn't my spiritual tradition, but I appreciated the fact that, here was a whole facility that was looking to actually make health and wellness a part of the spiritual experience and vice versa. And then another 10 minutes into the meeting, apparently this is a tradition with the hospital. Hospital-wide, there's an announcement on the PA system. Yes, we would like to ask everyone to bow your heads. Really? So the whole hospital is worshiping or praying together, and that was a wonderful experience. And so things like that, it's good to be creative, and you can get guidance in your prayers and meditations on how to move forward with your health care. So that's
All right.
The fifth book I wrote was a book called Guidelines for Building Wealth Through Faith. And the book talks about what are the principles in the Bible that give us guidance as to how we build wealth. And so I think there's a link, Doc, between business success and spiritual fortitude.
I agree. Absolutely. I said to Kelly. So Kelly, let me set you up real quick. How many people here have written a book? Just by show of hands. How many authors do we have here? How many people have ever, even at a small moment, thought about writing a book? Even if it was a quick thought. All right, there we go. Fantastic. All right, so we have a big gap here, right? Between people who've written books and people who have thought about writing books. So I know you have written books on how to write books. Tell us, where do we get started?
Sure. Okay, so there are a couple of things that I think can be really beneficial. And the first thing I would say to everybody here that wants to write a book, take the handcuffs off on how a book should be written. Forget about the image of the person in front of the typewriter or the laptop organically crafting their book, each word in perfect order. And think about all the different types of books out there. Books on quotes, books that collect Bible verses and teach people how to pray, books that are comprised of journal entries, diary entries, speeches from interviews. Take the handcuffs off how you think it should be done. And the next piece is to focus on the transformation you want to create. If somebody reads your book, what do you want to happen for that person? So take the focus off of yourself and onto how do you want to inspire. One of my clients is 9 years old, and she wrote a book on bullying because she hated seeing bullying at her school. So her message was that hurt people hurt people. Just that simple. Take the focus off of how it's done and focus on the transformation that you want to create. And then the last piece I'll share with you, because most of the time, I've been doing this a long time, and most of the time what holds people back is thinking, why would somebody want to read my story? Or what I'm teaching isn't new. There's tens of thousands of books on health and wellness, right? But what's unique is your story. No one else has your story, and you don't know how your story could change somebody's life, could help them do something differently, could make an impact. Your story has value. Everybody's does. Even my little 9-year-old had a story to share that made an impact. So let go of the doubts about the value of your story and focus on how can your story help another person? What is the transformation that you want to create? And if you can get really clear on that, you can get your book done in record time.
Amen.
So I'm gonna set it up like this. I got
Cool.
like 6 minutes left.
Okay.
I'm gonna get you in. but
Okay.
I'm gonna let this be your parting comments in addition
Okay.
to what you're gonna add to what Kelly said. So
Okay.
I'm gonna let you go, and then Olayinka, and we'll work our way back around
Okay.
for just final comments, final message. The topic is how to create health and wellness in every area of your life. Quite ambitious. So if you could just give your parting thoughts for the audience on the topic and whatever else you want to share,
Okay,
we'll work our way
cool.
down.
I'm gonna talk a little bit about the idea of tell your story. Like I even got it tattooed right here because I realized how important it is. Like my mentor D. Watkins say, if you're not telling your story, then you're giving society the space to kill you. Right? And when I go to schools and I share stories about when I was 10 years old and I lost my 7-year-old little brother, and that same year I lost an uncle, and every year since age 10, I've been losing friends and family to violence growing up in Baltimore. You get what I'm saying? And I tell people these stories and it motivates them to tell their own story. People say all the time, oh, why would anybody want to hear my story? And I'm like, your story can legit save someone else's life.
Yes.
I done got messages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter from people saying that, yo, because I read your story and see, you know, how successful you are, how you got through your depression and you got through all those things you was dealing with, it stopped me from committing suicide. Like, I done got things like that, and that's when I knew how important it was to tell your story. You just have to, like, and I look at it like this, like we don't belong to ourselves, like we belong to God. So if you have a story and you know that it's people out there that, even if you don't think that there's people out there that's just like you, it is. And once you jump out there and you start telling your story, you're gonna attract so many people that's going through the same thing you're going through, and y'all gonna basically be in this together now. Y'all gonna be helping each other out. You get what I'm saying? When you get coping mechanisms or you find something new to read or you find something new to listen to, it's like y'all in y'all own world. And what was the last comment I got? Oh, like I said, I'm really still trying to, you get what I'm saying, like, you know, become healthy and work out. It's like a slow journey, but I'm getting there. And
We're cheering you on, brother. We're
thank
cheering
you.
on.
And a lot of the things that I talk about in my books are things dealing with mental health. You know, people in Baltimore, especially black people, you get what I'm saying? You don't hear words like suicide, mental health, depression. You know what I'm saying? It's this quote that say the kid on the playground who doesn't want to fight always ends up with the black eye. So you can't run around being a young black boy in Baltimore talking about something, oh, I'm depressed, oh, I'm in my feelings. You get what I'm saying? Or you're going to find yourself in fights all the time. So even for the people like myself who really don't have a one-size-fit-all solution to these mental health problems, I always advocate for speaking about it. Speak about what you're going through. Be vulnerable so other people can feel comfortable with speaking about these things as well, and not, you know, getting demonized or, you know, getting made fun of because they feel like they're suicidal or depressed and stuff like that.
Good point.
I'll keep it short. Everyone says that right.
Famous last words. Speakers and authors.
Okay, so creating wellness in all areas of your life is not necessarily straightforward, it's not necessarily easy, but definitely starting from a place of seeking the connections between things, seeking the connections between your physical health and your financial health, seeking connections between your social well-being and your health, your spiritual health. And all things are definitely connected. So I would just urge that people just seek that balance. If you're a workaholic and neglect your families, that doesn't help. You know, if you're trying to go so far in one area and neglecting another area of your life, there has to be a balance for there to be health and well-being.
Final comments? Well, I hope that this panel inspired some of the people who are thinking about writing a book to consider writing it, because there's definitely some stories in this room. I can feel it. And my last piece of advice for potential authors is to, when you get home tonight and you're quiet and you're by yourself, pull out your cell phone and look at your text messages from the last year with the person that you connect with the most, and you will find that a good portion of your story is already written.
Amen.
You got deep. You got deep.
I've got 4 things to give you that I live every day. Number 1, you are a child of the living God. Therefore, you have authority and you have power to change the world. Number 2, rekindle the ability to dream. Don't let your physical reality dictate what you think of the future, right? Rekindle the ability to dream. Number 3, reach out to people around you, us and others, to help you. You cannot do it by yourselves. 4thly and lastly, do what you can with what you have, where you are right now.
Always remember to be determined, dedicated, and disciplined in everything that you do, and you will not fail. Also, know that age is absolutely nothing but a number. Don't let anyone tell you anything else but that. And if ever there were an anti-aging pill, you would have to call it exercise.
That's right. Amen.
The last thing I leave you with, for beautiful eyes, always look for the good in others. Amen. For beautiful lips, only speak words of kindness. For poise, walk with the knowledge that you never, ever walk alone. I love you.
Amen.
So in the minute I have left for the panel, let me just summarize what I took from this panel. From our esteemed Sister Ernestine, I took this idea of being determined, dedicated, and disciplined. Yes, don't forget the discipline. From Brother Wallace, as a man thinketh, as a woman thinketh, so she or he is. From Sister Kelly, your story can inspire others. Never be afraid to tell your story. From Brother Kandwani, it's not that you don't love reading, you love what you're being made to read. You can touch me with that one. And to Sister Yinka, whatever you call that higher power, look to that higher power for your power. And then on that, we will please join me in thanking Ernestine Shepard, Robert Wallace, Kelly Campbell, Kandwani Fidel, and Ola Yinka Ladezi for a great panel. Thank you all. Thank you.